Here we are with Sophia, who's a mom, a health coach, a cancer advocate, a recipe tester, a developer, vegan and vegetarian chef, marketer, designer, and two times cancer survivor.
Yep.
Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you
How
very
are
much.
you today?
I'm doing great after half of the day at the beach. That was really nice. So that's it.
Yeah, we can feel the spring here slowly coming in. Yeah. So let's start by how would you describe your relationship with your body now? What is different and what feels the same?
Pre and after cancer,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I would say, and I would not just say pre and after cancer, but it's also a question of age.
Hmm.
Uh, I believe that as we are growing up, we are more you know, we are more less aware of our body and more aware of what society expects of us. Um, I do think that having gone through cancer is an opportunity, and that at this moment, then it really means nothing at the age anymore because it makes us grow up a little bit faster, I guess. And to me, that's how I felt at least. It gave me an opportunity to realize that, you know, not just the body, but myself, I should come first, pre being a mom, pre being a recipe tester, pre being a marketer, that I should take care of myself, both mind and body. So I do feel that nowadays I am so much more comfortable with my whole self, body included, than I was pre-cancer. And I brought up the age too because I think that once we reach age 40 approximately, there's also a big breakthrough where suddenly we really don't care what people think, And I think that cancer also helps with that, It's even though we do go through, perhaps a mastectomy or, perhaps a reconstruction, but we start worrying more about us as a whole than pre-cancer.
Wonderful. So it was the two things together,
I
right?
believe so, yes. It
Yeah.
actually was also combined because my first cancer was at 46, so it kind of combined.
Was there a moment when you realized you could shift from being a survivor to thriving? And what did that feel like?
Actually, that's an amazing question. Um, I actually believe, I mean, you find out you have, I mean, you get the news that you have, cancer, any type of cancer. And of course, your first thoughts are your family, in this case with me, my girls. Um, but there, I mean, it's like giving birth, we women don't realize the strength we have inside us. And from the moment that we have our plan, whatever the plan is, whether people want to go, the modern medicine way or the alternative way, that's up to each person. Even though I am more proponent to modern medicine along with complementary therapies, I think that once we have our plan, we are starting to thrive because we know what our goal is. We know what we need to do to be able to thrive. So that is the first step, let's say, of thriving, is that moment that we might not even have started doing any type of treatment or mastectomy, whatever, but we have the plan. That's the first one.
Do you remember when that was for you?
Well, I got the news on May 21st, 1920, 2014. I mean, those dates now suddenly for me are super important. I would say just I had my mastectomy on the 25th of June. So I would say mid-June when I finally had a plan of what I wanted to do. My doctor actually wanted me to do chemo first, and I said, no, 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 I want my boobs out ASAP. So he agreed, he accepted my wishes, and we did mastectomy first. So I would say the moment we decided on a plan, which was around mid-June of 2014, that was my first moment of the thriving. My second moment, I would say, it's when I found a community of breasties, as we call, through a Young Survivor Coalition of women that had gone through it too, because they empower us newbies, I guess, that are starting our journey. And holy crap, I mean, it's such. I've never been a woman that had many women friends. I always was more of a tomboyish, so I had always more guy friends. And this was really my first time of suddenly having, my tribe, my woman tribe, which was really odd for me. But holy crap, I mean, I couldn't imagine my life without them, special at that moment. And since then, I've had that tribe, which was super important to me because they had gone through it. They knew what I was going through it better than my own sister or my kids, of course, because they know all the fears that come along with it, not just the thriving, but learning how to accept the fears
Mm.
and using the fears as also an empowerment to yourself. So
Mm.
that I would say is the second one. Once,
Would you mind, because I know this story, and one of the things that I adore about it was that little ritual you had. Would you be able to tell us?
so one thing that was amazing with the group YSC in South Carolina is that we would have monthly meetings, and it was a dinner every, I think it was last Thursday of the month. It doesn't matter. It was a Thursday night dinner that would go to a minimally cheap restaurant so that we could all afford it. We would go there, and then there comes the newbie. It was me once, it was many other women after me. And just to empower that woman, we'd all go to the bathroom, we'd all lift up our shirts and show off whether we'd be flat, whether we'd have had a reconstruction. It did not matter. And it was to show that woman that was starting her journey that we're still beautiful, we're still women, and it doesn't matter if you had a boob or foob, fake boob, through a reconstruction. And the type of reconstructions also, because I mean, you can have with silicone, you can have with saline water, you can have with one of your dorsal muscles or from your stomach. But it was to show the woman that after a year, 2 years, many of them 20 years survivors, we were still there and we were gorgeous. And then the other thing that was really cool is that to the woman that was about to have the mastectomy, especially if it was the day after, which happened a few times, would all write on her whole body. So all the way from her neck, all the way from to her tummy, little notes for her surgeon. Take good care of our little breasty, or if we knew the doctor that was going to be operating on her, hey, make sure you take care of her as well as you did with me. Just little fun things. So it was kind of a shock and a surprise, to the doctors because next day, instead of her arriving there all clean, they still had to scrap the heck out of her. But anyway, we take photos, of course, and those were things that we would share between us. And it was amazing, It was amazing because it helped us empower us, both the person that was going through it, but even also ourselves that had gone through it. Because the more you help people that have that are starting to go, the more we empower ourselves as well, because then there is a purpose. I mean, it sounds stupid,
Yeah.
but to me, I really felt like having gone through breast cancer gave me a whole different purpose in life and
Mm.
start doing things that I actually enjoy doing now.
Beautiful. That is thriving. Thriving
Yes,
through community.
yes,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So how did you begin to come back to your body when you knew you were safe from cancer?
Yeah. Uh, okay, first of all, I don't like the word safe or cured or whatever. I like to use the words, as in English, they say NED, no evidence of disease. We all have cancer cells, they are dormant. Anyone that goes through cancer, we never feel like that because pre-cancer, I would have a headache for 2 weeks. I wouldn't think anything of it. Nowadays, I have a headache for 2 weeks and I start thinking, did it metastasize? So we never have that.
Mm.
What we do have, though, is that love of life that pre-cancer many times we don't. Because as we almost, it's not like we dealt with death, but we could have dealt with death, or some are still dealing with death if they are in stage 4. But even if those that are dealing with stage 4, they realize how precious life is. I mean, any of us can get into a car right now and get into an accident. We don't have a second opportunity. In a way, cancer, even if it's only for 3 months, it's still a second opportunity because suddenly we create a bucket list of things we still want to do. One of my dear friends, that unfortunately she already passed away, Lauren. She was 20 something years old when she found out that she had cancer. And when she found out that, she had metastasized all over her body, I can tell you right now, she died at around age 30. She still got married. Uh, and her husband at the time, who's an amazing guy, he really supported her because he found out they started dating, just after she was Ned, but then the cancer came back. Um, but I'm telling you right now, I really believe that Lauren lived her life much more than most people that never dealt with cancer at age 80.
Oh,
You
mm,
understand what I'm saying? Why? Because she created a bucket list. One of the few things she never did that she wanted to do is go to Italy and Portugal. And unfortunately, she didn't make it. But she traveled all over the US. She went to the coolest, funnest places, eating like crazy, drinking like crazy, enjoying life. They even bought a stupid convertible to enjoy life, to feel the air on your face. I mean, small, tiny things like that is actually, enjoying that moment.
mm,
So, and that's one thing that today, what I do is what I want to do. Of
mm,
course, I mean, we all have responsibilities. We all have to pay our bills. There are things we still have to do. But even with that, I mean, find things that you may not get as much money, but you're actually enjoying and live accordingly to your budget. I mean, there's so much that one can do. The birds, like today, I arrived back on the beach and suddenly, wow, the birds are so awesome. That means that spring is here, the warm weather is coming. Those are details, but they are freaking amazing details. And that, to me, that's what it is. And the thriving that you were talking about, the third big step was when I moved back here. That suddenly, I got divorced and I restarted my life at age 50. And holy crap, was it scary, coming back with nothing, living a very good money wise, job and restarting my life. Yes, it was freaking scary. But if I did it, anyone else can do it. And I really believe that. I really believe that.
what role did scar tissue remediation and sexological bodywork play in the return to sensation and pleasure? Since this is our subject, our core
Of course.
subject.
Well, first of all, I have to explain, and many people don't realize because many people say, oh, wow, at least you got a boob job, a free boob job, or whatever. Well, not completely free in the States, but still. Um, Yes, I mean, my boobs, look much better than my boobs were before because, they don't, you're running, they don't go up and down, they don't go down anymore now. They stay where they are. And it looks good with clothes, exactly. Uh, but you also lose sensation. You don't have a nipple anymore. And those are details that people don't think about. And yes, I miss my old boobs, because they were mine. And secondly, because I had much more sensation. Now, the work, for example, that I did with you, which was amazing because before anyone could, many people, for example, I would be on the street, someone would bump into me and they would say sorry. I'm kind of, why are they say sorry? And oh, they must have bumped into me. I didn't feel anything. Okay. Um, Once I started doing the work with you, and there's that one day that to me that was the miracle day, that was laying down, you were doing me the massages and working, through all the nerves because that's the big problem is that when they cut you, they cut all the different nerves, and then the nerves they start to reconnect in different ways. Um, and it's much like exercise too. After doing something like that, you have to keep on moving. If not, you get yourself tired. And the same work that you did to me or we did together because you gave me a lot of homework. So we really did together, which is good. And it's homework that you need to do for the rest of your life. So what was amazing is the fact that you found different spots in my body that I had no idea that I had tremendous sensation, you know, that gives me a high that, makes me feel, horny or whatever, and through those areas that have nothing to do with the breasts, suddenly by your work with, the scar remediation and even the massage and everything else, there was one time I was laying down on your the table, um, And yes, I never know those exact words. And I had my eyes, closed. I said, I was gonna, holy crap, it feels like you're touching my nipple that I don't have. And you say, look at, open your eyes, look where I'm touching. And it was exactly where the nipple was. I was like, fuck. It's, how is that possible? Sorry, I shouldn't be swearing. But I mean, I was just so in shock. How can it be possible that all my life through, during the journey, that the doctor say, well, no, you're not going to have any more sensation. And that's why I am a big believer that you should do modern medicine plus complementary therapies. And your work is freaking amazing for people like us with breast cancer. I'm sure same thing with prostate cancer for men. Is that okay? It's never going to be the same it was before, but there are other ways that you can work to make you feel still, the sensation of having libido, the sensation of having pleasure, the sensation of not only loving yourself and learning how to touch yourself, but also once you have a partner, also teaching that person that you are with how to touch. It's different, but it still works. It still can work. The only thing, much like physical therapy, much like exercise, it's not just going to your however many sessions that you need with someone like you. It's also the homework that you gave me. And that homework is for life. That homework, and I'm saying that why? Because for about 4 or 5 months, I barely did anything, even with the oils that you explained how to do. And suddenly there was one kind of, sensation is going away. And then I restarted and it came back again. Now, we also have to realize that each person is different, each body responds differently. The first thing is that we have to have an open mind. Yes, that's a big part. The second part is the homework, not just the work you do, with you directly, but it's also the homework, you know. When we had a webinar with Inês Carreiras and you
Mhm.
explained about scar remediation, some women afterwards told me that they start doing some of the things that you taught even online, so without ever meeting you, and they felt the difference. So, which is amazing. I know exactly. So, yes, I mean, if someone can go to you, holy crap, much better because, then it's one on one. But even if they cannot go with you, even online, you can teach people how to take care of themselves, how to touch themselves, how to love their body, how to what to do and how to do, uh, and that is amazing. That is
You have to
freaking
care for
amazing.
your body in ways that you probably never care.
Exactly,
It's really
exactly.
like remapping the way that your body that you've felt your body before.
I mean, one of the things, and I've told that before to you and other people, on this side, I got pretty much all the sensation as if I were to have a nipple on the left side, the
Mhm.
side actually where I had the cancer. On this side, not as strong. But oddly enough, look, let me put it back here
Huh?
in this area is an area that I have a strong sensation as if it was a breast. Now, if someone or myself, I start touching myself from here and then start coming to my breast, then I regain that sensation. It's not like the old boobs, but still, it's certainly much better than not having anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of people think they cannot regain anything. And this is what I was going to talk about right now, the common myths about, having gone through breast cancer, like for example, the loss of sexual appetite. The loss of breast tissue means that the loss of femininity or the sexual identity, right? Or the pain during intercourse. Sometimes, because hormonal shifts or different things, even if it's your breast that's been removed, you can have pain. Yeah, but people just stay there, right? As something that this is going to happen and there's no way out of it, right? Like
And
inevitable. And the other
yes.
one is talking about sex
Mhm.
after cancer is such a taboo thing. So what do you think about those myths and what do you think um how to demystify this? What's your experience?
Well, first of all, I mean, any Christian, let's say, society, more, perhaps more than the others, well, Islamic too, I guess, we grow up in a world where it's already taboo. I mean, talking about sex, anything that has to do with, you know, sexual feeling and everything else is still a little bit taboo. It's becoming better, but it's still taboo. So we already grow up, goodness, the idea of touching ourselves, masturbation. I mean, all those things are, unfortunately, in some areas still, of the world, still a bit more taboo. Now, when a woman, breast cancer, there's not only one type of breast cancer, there's different types. I was lucky that I had triple negative because it was not hormonal.
Mm,
Um, the problem with women that have hormonal breast cancer is that, yes, in a way, they are very lucky because there's actually a magical pill, tamoxifen usually, that they can take after going through their medical journey. The only problem is that it helps prevent cancer coming back, which we, as triple negative, unfortunately do not have. Yet, at the same time, that because it is a regulator of hormones, it also brings other problems with especially their sexuality. So the dryness, the vagina dryness, the exactly the hurting during intercourse. I mean, things that in general uh, triple negative breast cancer does not deal with as much.
mhm,
Now, that being said, again, we need to know our body. I mean, we need to know our body for our own health because the better we know our body, the sooner we can notice something that is wrong. Because many times you can go to doctors, but they see thousands of body and each body is individual. So the more we know our body and we realize something is off, then the sooner we can bug them. We have to be our own first advocates. So the better we know our body, the better we can explain to the doctor, no, this is not normal. So that's number one. In terms of sexuality, the better we also know our body, the better and explore, not just know, but actually explore. And that's something that to me, with you, that's what you actually also taught me, is to explore, to figure out, sexuality and sensuality has nothing to do just with the vagina and the boobs, like most world thinks about, it's not just intercourse. So it might be an area in your ankle. It might be, a slight kiss. It might be a slight rubbing somewhere that might make you aroused. So, again, the more you touch yourself, the more you feel comfortable with your own body to explore yourself, the more chances you have um, to, reach orgasm, to have even if you don't reach orgasm, but to have pleasure in a sexual activity. The other thing too, and that's my belief, I don't know if I'm right or not, but very much like riding a bike. If you don't ride a bike for a while, you are wobbly the first times, you know the more you touch yourself, and especially, when you're dealing with the vagina, whatever, the more you interact with yourself by touching yourself, whether it is, with your own hands and fingers or with, what's it called? A machine. What is it called? You know those words better than I am, sorry. Like a,
vibrators.
vibrator or something like that. Also, the more you stimulate, your own juices not to have dryness.
Mhm.
But then you also have to realize there are many
And also
products.
lube. Lube is amazing. Is our
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. But there's also a lot of products out there, you know, a lot that are more natural, others not as much, but that's up to each person that you can get to help, But again, you have to first feel comfortable with yourself to, if you have a partner, to be able to explain all those details to the partner so that you can. I mean, we communicate. You are with a partner and you communicate whatever problems there arrive there. We can have between each other. Why can we not communicate also about our own pleasure?
mm,
Why
mm,
can we communicate about finances, about kids, about the house, about cooking, but but we cannot about our own intimate self? And that doesn't make sense if our first house is us.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a
Our
lot of
first house.
stigma.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of taboo still. A woman that goes through, cancer, any type of cancer can be also ovary, for example. Same thing with men, and I'm using more prostate because it is a more, sexual element, let's say, of the man. It seems like suddenly, their central and sexual life is dead. Heck no. I mean, I feel more sensual and sexual as a woman today than I did 20 years ago. Perhaps also because I feel more comfortable with my own self.
Yeah.
When I had my mastectomy, all I wanted, I mean, all I had in my mind, because my mom had breast cancer, even though it was totally different, because her first one was hormonal, her second one was triple positive hormonal. So it was both hormonal, mine was negative. So they had nothing to do with one another. But in my mind, not knowing at the time all those different details about breast cancer, I thought breast cancer was just breast cancer, like most people, which is normal. She only took one breast out. And then 20 years later, she got breast cancer again in the other breast. So at the time, all I wanted was take it out. I did not care. I was for the first 2 years totally flat. Um, it was much tougher for me to become bald and have no hair than it was to have no boobs. It makes no sense. Why? Because the hair, people notice right away, of course. The boobs, you put a big sweater on and heck, no one needs to know. Uh, After a while, then, summer came, tank tops. I've always loved tank tops. I've always loved bikinis. And that's when I started feeling there's something missing. And that's why I decided to do reconstruction. But in 2014, if you were to ask me, am I ever going to do reconstruction? I would say no, absolutely no. 2 years later, I realized that I did not, and I know it's stupid, I did not feel as comfortable as a woman, you know, without breasts. And I did it. And some people go flat for the rest of their lives. And that, again, visualization perhaps is a great thing, to close your eyes and imagine yourself 5 years down the road. How do you see yourself as a woman? Some women will go flat, and that's totally fine. It's very personal choice. Some women will go with silicone, others will go with one of the muscles. Again, that will depend on how much fat or not also you have in your body and if you exercise or not. So, but that's very personal. You cannot tell someone, oh, you should do this because you have to decide what you have to do. Now, how did it make me feel? At first, when I had my boobs, oh my God, it felt amazing. But then after a while, I look in the mirror and I see these two big scars right here in the middle. And it was tough because it was always a reminder that I dealt with breast cancer. So I decided to do a 3D tattoo of the nipple. Okay, so suddenly I was looking at the mirror. I'm kind of, okay, I don't have nipples, but it certainly looks like I had nipples. So my eye was no longer the scar was no longer catching my attention. It was a nipple. It made me feel good. Then I started having a relationship, with a person, and it was funny because I start being envious of that person's nipples. It's kind of okay, hey, why? And then I mean, and that's when modern medicine is amazing. So I talked to my doctor oncologist, and she says we can do that. She said, "What do you mean you can do that?" No, they do a little cut, they twist the skin, they sew it back, and you have a little nipple. No, you're not going to have the sensation of a nipple, but it will make it look like you have a nipple. I'm okay, let's go for that. So I decided to go ahead and do it. Of course, it's a tiny little thing. It's stupid. I mean, at the end of the day, it's stupid. But if it makes me feel better, heck, why not? I actually was awake. They just, put anesthesia around the area. So the whole time I was looking, oh, wow, Um, and of course, afterwards, I had cotton for a while until I finally was able to see the whole thing. Um, but it's small details, but I know it's not the boobs that I had before, but it makes me feel more like a woman. It makes me feel like I can have a tank top like I have today. I can have a bikini like I have today. And I feel more comfortable. It's not even because it's for me. It's not for others. It's for me.
It's finding out what really matters to you and what's important to you, right?
Yeah.
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 Sophia, what would you say to partners who want to support their loved ones, but they feel unsure on how? What practical things would you tell them?
In general, or more in terms of sensuality and sexuality?
Let's say in terms of sensuality and sexuality, in terms of how as a partner to deal with that from your loved one.
First and foremost, communication.
Mm.
That's the number one. Um, and fortunately, or fortunately, actually, um, if there were already problems pre-cancer, these problems in general will arise even more. And it's pretty normal that there are lots of breakups during or after cancer.
Mm.
Many men, especially, and I'm talking now, I mean, it can be woman, woman, but in general, it's more in terms of the men. Many men cannot deal with a woman, for example, without breasts, or with a woman that suddenly has a different way of thinking. Many women go from being very tight and very, secluded, whatever, as a wife, as a subservient wife, and suddenly after cancer, it's kind of no. I mean, I know I want to start living my life. Many men cannot deal with that. It's kind of who's these new women? Um, so there's also women. That was my case. That suddenly I realized I was in a marriage. I mean, I absolutely adore my ex as a friend because we were friends for a long time. We no longer had an actual matrimonial relationship, let's say. Um, but I was the one who asked for the divorce because I suddenly realized I was living a fake life. And I did it for myself, but I also did it for my daughters. I did not want them to grow up that you had to stay with a man just because you're supposed to, because that's what society expects of you after being married. So, truth be told, I number one did it for myself, but it was also a learning lesson for my daughters. So, number one is communication. Number two is the woman, yet again, learning about her new body and figuring out what makes her feel more sensual, what gives her more pleasure, and then communicate to her partner. It might be that you don't have any boobs anymore, but even without boobs, through scar remediation, you can still have feeling. You don't have to have boobs to have scar remediation to have feeling. You might not have boobs and have the sagging skins, and that's okay. That's You're okay with that, and still work with someone as yourself. Um, to do scar remediation and massages and all the therapies that you work with so that you can still have pleasure, and even more so learning about other parts of your body that perhaps you did not know that can awaken that sensuality in your body. So it's the communication and being open-minded. And if your partner, whether it was from pre-cancer or someone after, is open to that communication, then you
Bingo.
know, bingo. But that's whether there is cancer or no cancer. The cancer, like I said, it's an open door to a new chapter where I know many marriages, we know many marriages where they actually became even stronger together because they already had a good foundation anyway. There are other marriages that were already wobbly. So, of course, suddenly there's another piece of the puzzle that comes out, and that wobbliness cannot stand and it falls apart. And that's okay, also. That's okay. You know, our life is all about learning lessons. The important thing is to learn the lessons and then to learn about ourselves, to love ourselves, to take care of ourselves, you know, so that afterwards we can transmit what we want. Very much. Why is it that a woman, and now again, no cancer related, but why is it that a woman knows and feels comfortable with giving pleasure to the man? Because a man has no problem saying what he wants, and I'm talking man, could be a woman also, but in general, a man has no problem in saying what he prefers the woman to do, but the woman cannot. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much
Of course,
for this talk and these
of course.
wonderful insights.
Of course. I mean, you need more than anything, the taboos come on. I mean, we're in the 21st century. We need to break those taboos, and that has to start. One of the things I love to do is go
Yeah,
to
this is
high
gonna end.
schools.
Just this is gonna end in less than 1 minute.
Okay. I like to go to high schools and colleges, talk to the young people. We have to start with them. If we can reach them, we can reach a much better world for all of us.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.